Welcome to LogisticsSales.com, where today we're going to talk about understanding your customers' needs. So stick around and let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of LogisticsSales.com, where today we're still on our segment of the art of prospecting, and today we're going to talk about understanding your customers' needs. I'm your host, Dean, and with me, as always, are my co-host, Damon.
Hello, hello.
And Gail.
Hi, guys.
So today we're going to be talking about a very important element to sales, and that's understanding your customers' needs. And in today's competitive landscape, it's truly going to help you separate yourself from other salespeople out there by understanding the importance of truly listening to your customer. In today's episode, we're going to identify some key strategies on how to understand your customers' pain points, tailor your solutions, and strengthen your long-term partnerships. So let's get started with why understanding your customers' needs are so important, Damon.
Well, first of all, you probably won't have a customer if you can't understand their needs. So understanding a customer's needs goes well beyond just asking basic questions, because even basic questions can annoy somebody if you don't know how to ask them properly. And that's really just understanding the need of that customer, right? And understanding people in general. So it's that whole thing about building that relationship. If you don't understand the person in front of you, what's the chances that you're going to be able to close that person? Or if you can't provide empathy to that person in front of you, and sometimes you could figure it out right when you're approaching somebody. You know, if it's face to face, you can see it on their face. And if you can't understand that someone's frustrated in front of you, it's not going to work. And their need is maybe to be comforted at that moment. Or their need is, hey, not right now, because I'm just not here right now. And the same thing happens in a phone call, right? So in a phone call, when you do enough of these sales calls, you start figuring that process out too. And you can figure out the immediate need in the beginning is whether they even want to talk or not, right? So learning how to just, soften that conversation in the beginning, and then getting to that point where you're able to ask questions where they're actually willing to answer back, right? And that's a challenge a lot of the salespeople feel right in the beginning. So initiate a proper conversation, right? By, understanding that person in front of you, and then being able to dig in a little bit deeper by asking some of the softer questions first, and then working your way to some of the harder questions. Another solution or another way to understand the need for the customer is by offering like customized solutions. And really, again, you nailed this right off the beginning, which is like the listening is the key part. Because in listening, one is that they're telling you how to sell to them, right? Because they're like, hey, I'm busy right now, maybe call me back later. Okay, when is an appropriate time, right? Would be the next appropriate question. And so they teach you how to do that. Oh, hey, would you like an email? Would you like to be contacted by phone? Would you like to be set up an appointment for Zoom or in person, right? There's so many ways that you could try to figure out for that conversation to kind of continue. And for me, it's always like making sure that I'm listening enough to make sure that, what are they saying? Is there a good time to call back? Is there a good time to do business with them? Is there a good time to talk about the business and really have that one-on-one time with them? And at the same time, I'm listening for key metrics as well. Like, when you do ask questions, you're going to get some sort of feedback in there, whether they're giving you hints about what their current situation is, or even if they're the right person that you should be speaking to. Sometimes it's a different person that you want to speak to, but they're teaching you that in that conversation. So what I'm trying to do is figure out, okay, what solutions can I provide based on what they're saying currently to me? And another reason that we want to understand the need for customers too is to retain them, right? Everybody wants to work with people that can understand their issues, understand their problems, understand maybe sometimes what their reporting metrics are. And for me, it's always saying, okay, well, let me understand what position you're in first, and then see who do you have to answer to, and let me try to help you do your job, so then I could build that relationship. And if your manager is liking what you're doing, most likely you're going to keep wanting to work with us. And again, based on whatever industry you're in, you're going to be able to retain customers, whether it's for reoccurring business, right? If you have a good experience with somebody one time, the chances that they'll probably want to work with you again is pretty high, right? Because if they enjoyed it, they're either going to refer you or give you more of their own business. And definitely when they know that you can understand them and you understand their needs, they're going to probably give you more opportunities. So you have opportunities to get more efficiency gains when you do your sales and be able to get more leads and referrals probably out of it.
Right. And again, you hit the nail on the head when you said being able to listen and truly hear what those pain points and needs are of the customer. But also with listening comes asking, being able to ask the right questions, Gail. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Thanks, Dean. Yeah, I think when it comes to building this relationship and working with your customers, asking the right questions becomes extremely, extremely important. There are unlimited number of questions that we could ask potential customers, but finding the right ones that we've tailored to the company, to the business, and to the information that we've already gathered goes a huge, huge way in making that relationship and having, instead of a pitch, it's a conversation instead. And that's where we want to kind of teach you how to have those conversations. So when you're having that initial conversation, when you're trying to figure out what questions do I ask, how do I ask them, remember that you don't have to do it all at once. You can break it down. You can have it over several calls, over several weeks, through emails, through social media marketing. All of this stuff can be kind of segmented so that you're not bombarding them and overloading them with too many questions. What we do recommend, though, is when you go into those cold calls, into those conversations, whatever stage of the sales cycle that you are, that you go in with a specific intention in mind. Now, there are various intentions that you can have throughout the sales process. Maybe your intention is simply to find out if the customer is qualified. Maybe it's to get a better understanding of their business and how it operates. Maybe it's just to find any pain points in their operations that your product or that your service would fix or fit into. But sometimes those initial calls, maybe your only intention is just to get some contact details so that you can send them an email and follow up later. So don't be concerned about trying to get too much in that conversation. I think Damon mentioned it earlier. You don't want to overload them. You don't want to overwhelm them with too much all at once, because then it's not really a conversation. It's more of an interrogation. So keep that in mind when you are having those conversations.
Yeah, we get that a lot with even some of our newer reps. They're so focused on asking the questions that they forget to even wait for a response back from that client or prospect. And you really want to be able to allow for those spaces and gaps to be able to allow someone to respond to any question that you are asking, and don't be so focused and in your head. So again, it's that conversational piece that you really want, is where, hey, I'm here to understand you, and I'm going to ask you questions, making sure that you follow me along with it. And sometimes, if you're asking a question and it doesn't really make sense to another person, try to rephrase it. Or try to ask this same question in a different way that might be in a lighter manner where it's not so intrusive, and you could try to get that conversation to continue. Or, again, drop the conversation and move on to another conversational piece.
Yeah, I love the two words that you said that really stuck out was, tailored and conversation. I think it's important to have that tailored approach, because whether it's a phone call or an email, when you receive it, if you're putting yourself in your prospect shoes and you would receive this, is this something that is tailored to the needs that I may have? And if it's not, they can see it's just kind of like an e-blast that might go out, and it might not even feel personal. And you want to have that personal touch, because that's how the conversations start. And that's the other part. You have to know how to have those conversations, because sometimes there's that argument that, I'm not interested. And, that's telling them, or telling you on the phone that maybe now's not the right time. The worst thing you could do is try and sell at that point. It's again, knowing the right questions to ask, which we're talking about right now, but also being able to have a conversation, because the conversation is where the relationship starts, and the partnership doesn't start without the relationship. So really key points to think of when you're going through this.
Exactly. And then a second strategy. So we've talked about asking those questions and having those intentions behind those questions when you go into those interactions. But there's another way of asking a question without even asking a question, and that's to make educated assumptions. And the key word to that is educated, because you don't want to assume that you understand the prospect's needs before hearing them out, but you can use information that you've gathered through research, through previous conversations, through interactions with other colleagues or different industries that are similar to that customer, to make an educated assumption on potentially the needs of their business, potential pain points that they're feeling or experiencing. It gives you kind of like an insider's point of view without actually having to ask them the question. And then you can make your educated assumption. And if you are off on your assumption, or if it doesn't actually apply to that customer, 9 times out of 10, they'll let you know. They'll say, actually, that doesn't really apply to our business, and then they'll redirect you into the avenue that actually is in line with what they're doing. But the nice part about that is because you've done the research, because you understand the industry, 9 times out of 10, your assumptions should be at the very least in line. And then they may just kind of redirect you, be like, oh yeah, we don't quite do it this way, but we do it this way. And it's a way of asking the question without actually having to ask anything at all. The third way to do this is to ask clarifying questions. So a lot of the times when you're having these conversations, customers will drop these key bits of information, whether it's answers to your questions or in just a casual conversation, or even just telling you about their day. And inside of those little nuggets of information that they just drop, you can actually ask for a little bit of clarification and find out a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes. And because it's something that they initially offered themselves, it's less of an abrasive way to ask that question. You could be like, oh, what do you mean by that? Or could you elaborate a little bit further? I'm not sure I understand. And it allows them to open up without you having had to go and ask them the question from the get-go. A good example of that is we've seen like companies that say, oh yeah, we're having problems with our shipping, it's just really slow. You can ask them, oh, what's the issue? Like, are you finding that it's just not getting to your end destination in time? Is it like a problem with getting loaded on time? And you can start to expand off of that based off of the information that they drop for you.
And in situations like that, Gail, I like to repeat what the customer says back to them. So if they say like it's really slow right now, I'm gonna talk to them and say, hey, why is this a slower time of year for you in general, or is this something that's new to you? But maybe something like where I'm acknowledging what they're saying, but I'm also using those words back and then repeating it to them to get the answer for what I'm looking for and to try to navigate it. And I'm also looking at ways that, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of ways, if it's slow, what do we do? Are we more flexible? Can we, is there any solutions that I could potentially provide? Or can I give them more insights about their industry, right? So if you have industry knowledge and you're talking to other competitors and you say, okay, well, what do they do in their slow time? Is there ways that they can pick up volumes, or can they get into different markets? So maybe I'll try mentioning some of that stuff as well, just to kind of carry that conversation forward and make it relevant to what they're actually talking about.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Damon. But I think what it all comes down to is just being able to dig apart things that they say. We talked about active listening. There are sometimes gold mines in the things that seem inconsequential, but if you actually dig into them a little bit further, there's so much information about their business, about how they operate, about what's important to them, about anything that they're experiencing that could be a struggle. And Damon said it really well. It's repeating what they say back to them. Using their own language is a really, really great way to connect with them, which leads me to my last point here, which is being able to empathize. You got to remember that the person on the other end of that phone, the other end of that email, across the table, they're a person too. They want to feel that connection. They want to feel appreciated. And of course, they want to feel heard and understood. So by allowing yourself to empathize with them, if they're struggling, if they have pain points that they're experiencing, even if it's nothing work related, maybe they're just having a rough day, being able to empathize them is going to continue to build that relationship and to compound the trust that you're starting to develop with them, so that they always think of you when they're like, hey, I'm going through a rough patch here, whether it's personal, whether it's work, whether it's regarding, shipping and logistics. They're going to say, I'm going to call Gail, I'm going to call Dean, I'm going to call Damon, because you understand that connection piece is there. And so empathy is like that hidden gem when it comes to those questions and having that conversation to delve a little deeper into their business that's going to tie it all together.
And it's not always about the sale, and it's more about how can we help somebody through a tough situation. So going back to that same example of if someone's telling you business is slow right now, right? Yeah, the economy could be taking a downturn. They might have lost one of their biggest customers. Do we really feel like that's the appropriate time to make the sale when someone's down and out? But instead, offer empathy, right? People will get back up on their feet. And it's about how you make them feel in that situation. And if you can be there for someone's tough times, they're most likely going to be there for you in the good times too. And they'll remember that, like, hey, you know what? This guy gave up part of himself to speak to me that day. And it wasn't about the sale. It was just about opening up a ear. So there's going to be future opportunities
Yeah, I don't think enough could be said about empathy, because it really shows that individual on the other end of the line, that you truly care about them. And who doesn't want to be cared for? And that's where that trust factor comes in. And when a prospect trusts you, they're going to open up to you. They're going to want to talk to you, and really it helps set the foundation for a really strong partnership, where when the times are tough, or say they're having problems, and they know they can turn to you because they know you care about them, and they can trust that you're telling them these are the things that you can do to help make their life easier. It's really, it sets the stage to start things off on the right foot.
So as we continue through today's episode, we do have a worksheet for you guys. You'll find it there at the bottom if you want to click the link and download that worksheet. It's all about the art of prospecting and understanding your customers' needs. It's not too long on this one, but we do highly recommend that you follow along in today's episode and fill it out. And if you have any questions, definitely let us know, and we'd be happy to help.
Yeah, we love hearing from everybody. So keep the questions coming in, and we'll continue down this road together, and looking forward to see where it leads for you. So brings us to our next point, which is really identifying the pain points. Now we're talking about, understanding them. We want to be able to identify them, and that's all started through the initial dialogue, that once you're having those conversations, the next step is to truly identify the pain points. And there's, several key strategies, and we're talking about supply chain and logistics. There's only so many things, it's the only thing, we talk about transportation, the only thing consistent is the inconsistencies about it. Like if something's going good, something bad is just down the road kind of thing. And you have to be able to roll with the punches and be flexible. And, having that skill and letting know you've been through it. And if something has come up, we've probably already dealt with it, and they gain that confidence, and you get to that peer-to-peer relationship with them, whether now they're all of a sudden turning to somebody like yourself, knowing that, this is the pain point we've talked about, and, we've talked about this is something you can do. So again, super important. It's super important to be able to do. So, again, some of the prospects, may be looking to jump when that timing is just right, which we talked about last episode, and they've encountered, say, a service failure, and you just happen to be there at the right time in the right place, understanding there was the need, and now, you've identified it. You're able to now follow through and help them through it, which again, we're talking about, continuing to grow that partnership, because there's so many benefits that come from that. Few, again, key strategies. You want to look for some operational challenges. That's really important, because where is the breakdown within their own supply chain? And if you can help them find that, again, listening to the right things, sometimes they give you clues, and maybe they're struggling with it, and they don't even know the answer yet. And again, if it's something you've done in the past, you can help them through this issue, whether it's delays, or they just need things sped up properly. Maybe it is at the warehouse. Maybe, the truck isn't getting loaded on time, or, maybe they just, those little things that they haven't thought of, that you can now bring a new fresh set of eyes in to help them figure out the problem.
And that's where you want to research again, is research and see, what does the operation team look like? Who are the parties that are involved? Who are all dealing with that process of getting that product from start to finish, right? Because there could be multiple people involved. And if you can understand the process of the flow, then you understand where that customer is sitting at, and only then are you going to be able to really understand their operational challenges, right? If you actually understand the operation. So what I like to do is visualize it. What are they doing actually? How are they bringing product in? What are they doing at their facility? How are they moving this out? What type of customers do they have? And what's their mindset look like? What's their expectations on this product? And so I'm looking at a lot of these things, from quality control all the way down to delivering that product to a final customer. And even after that, once it's delivered, is what's happening after that? Is there a follow-up process? And so if I can understand the operational challenges, then I can understand the person I'm speaking to and his role in that operations.
For sure. And the flow is so important, because when you get into a really constructive conversation, that's where the magic happens, because you're sharing information back and forth, and they're telling you, their pain points, like they've identified them, and you're walking through talking about these things, and it gives you the opportunity to actually provide them with the selling points you have, whether it's delays in transit and missed appointments. You can start talking about, your successful on-time delivery rating. If they're talking about issues with a product that, say, it's under a controlled temperature, and they've had some issues where the temperatures have fallen short or below the requirements, and they have refusals, and that's a huge problem. And if you could all of a sudden start talking about your real-time technology monitoring the temperature, and that's something you have in all of your assets. Again, it's that assurance that they're gaining by just having the right flow. You're giving them the answers to those pain points that they're having by just talking about the services you have without truly selling them, just having the conversation. And again, if you're listening, they're going to tell you other pain points they're having. They may be working with other people where there's a lack of communication, and if you're conversing properly, that right away is not happening. There's no lack of communication because you're communicating together right now. Whereas, say, there's another person they've tried to deal with in the past, and they've, emails go unanswered and everything else. And, I think it's a great time for you to sell yourself also.
And Dean, we've done this a bunch of times with our own customers where a personnel change happens in the company, and now all of a sudden, where you used to be able to see freight, now you're not. And then it's like bringing in those other departments and saying, okay, well, hey, let's talk to the people that we do have a relationship with, and maybe the new person doesn't really understand where we're coming from. So knowing the different departments and knowing who you can go to in those type of situations is key to retaining business and also like gaining new business. Because if the person, for example, that you're speaking to may not understand what other departments are going through, and you do because you've dealt with it in the industry for years and years, or you just understand it well because you've done your research, then it's just expanding someone's mind and saying, hey, what's important to those people?
Yeah.
And if it's important to those people, it's probably important to your organization, correct? And then just lead that conversation from there.
For sure. And to take it even one step further, I think it's a really key or good skill to have if you take pride in, their product, their brand, and for them to know that you care before them asking for you to care goes a long way. So that's another, factor that I think comes into play. Sometimes they're worried about their brand being tarnished. And if you let them know that, your brand is our brand, and a lot of times if you're dealing in transportation, you're actually servicing their customers. If you're moving, shipments all over North America, in our case, you want your customer to know, or your partner, that their customer is going to appreciate the service that's being delivered because you're taking on the responsibility of that brand and having some pride in it. And again, that goes so far and gains so much confidence with the listener on the other end, with somebody like your partner that wants to work with you. Again, a lot of it's still selling points in your conversation without selling. If they're having issues with damages or safety and compliance, you could talk about your safety scores. You can talk about your accreditations and certifications. Insurance. Again, Gail was referring to insurance requirements with some of these companies that they have. And right away, if you happen to know the industry they're working in, if there's a certain baseline or a need that they would have, you can talk about your insurance requirements before they even ask for it. And again, gaining that confidence, building that trust, and just having a conversation with them. And it's that simple sometimes if you break it down to just being able to communicate properly.
And Dean, I've seen you do this with larger corporations as well. But when you're dealing with some of these corporations, you're making sure that you're adhering to every department and what they're doing, whether it's the accounting department, making sure, hey, how do you want to be billed? Is this proper? And then the people in operations appreciate that. They're like, hey, you know what? Wow, you're taking that headache off of me. Oh, here's the compliance department. Oh, you're taking care of that for me as well. So because you're sending all the insurances over and you're updating all those insurances and you're talking to the right team members, including everybody in that chain email. But the way that you communicate with these other departments is also helping you kind of build that relationship with your key personnel. And again, it's all that making them look good. Can you make somebody look good, feel good? Because they're most likely going to want to work with you over and over again. And even if they leave, the other people there already know who you are. And it's easy for them to kind of work with somebody that's making their job easier too and understands, right? Like it's that communication part is so key of how you listen, how you understand the operations. If you understand that there's different departments and different needs of each department as well.
Thanks, Damon. That's great, and it's truly, I think that's where empathy comes to play. It's knowing that on the other end they're busy, and if you're able to take some work away from them and make their life easier, it's going to be appreciated, but it also, if it's genuine and it makes you feel good, you're going to want to do it more too. So it's nice to not just deal with the individual that you first dealt with when you're dealing with this customer when you got started, but to get to know others. If you're truly in for it, to build relationships, it's you're going to have a point of contact, but if you're dealing with so many, a lot of that goes up the food chain, and people talk about, wow, I love working with these people because, and we've said it before, there's nothing better to hear from a customer, wow, I only wish we would have done this sooner. And that's such a huge reward, and it feels so good to hear, and it gives you the motivation to not only continue doing it because it's truly what you want to do, but it shows you what needs to happen and how to do it. You can duplicate the things that are working well for you.
Building those relationships is actually super, super important because, we'd mentioned it. What happens if that person decides to leave the organization later on? Maybe they get a promotion. Maybe they go to a completely different industry altogether. Now you're having to rebuild that relationship from scratch. If you've built a network of people within that organization, say their coworkers, maybe the people that work under them, the people that work over them, the accounting team, the compliance team, whoever it is, if you've built this network of people that are fans of you and what you do and the services that you provide, when that new person comes in to take the place of the person that you mainly coordinated with, it's much easier to win them over, because not only are you trying to win them over, but you have all of these people within their own organization that are willing to go to bat for you and willing to say, yeah, they're great. We love them. What they provide, their service is great. Their product is great. And you have raving fans that are going to hype you up for the new person, which is going to make that conversion a lot easier.
For sure.
And yeah. Dean, you mentioned going up the food chain, and literally I got this message yesterday. One of our associates, he was talking to a current customer that was experiencing a little bit of a slowdown. So we asked for referrals. He's like, hey, is there anything else that you could recommend? And there was and she's like, yeah, there is. There's one of the people that used to work in our work with us. She went to a different industry or a different category of the food chain, which is like bakery products. And so you go from seafood to bakery. So now you're going again in the food chain industry, but you're going laterally across other businesses. And so the gentleman there just goes, hey, you know what, I know you from working with the seafood company, and yeah, I'd love to work with you, and I know you from there, and I really enjoyed our relationship there. So it's that communication piece, and when someone knows your reliability and knows your service, they're more likely to, again, it's not even like the direct person, but there's so many people around that person that can potentially help you down the road that you may not even have talked to before.
Yeah, great point. And a couple other ones here as we're working on identifying pain points is understanding their future plans, which is really important. Knowing your prospects' long-term goals is going to help you offer them solutions. I think it's really important for them to know that you're willing and prepared to grow with them over time. And in doing that, say that they have a few other ideas that they want to implement. If they already know that they enjoy working with you and the services you provide, but they're coming up on a larger scale project that's going to involve, say, trailer pools, or servicing new lanes and increasing their own customer base, when they know that you're there and you're asking about these things, there's this vested interest. It's like it's a true partnership, and they know that, hey, we've got this idea, we're working on this right now, we can't wait to get you involved. And it fires them up too, because they have the confidence they need to go after new business and find new lanes, because you're delivering on what you promised, which is huge.
And supply chains are changing all the time. Like, we live in a global economy nowadays, and more people are picking up on this. And I was just talking to a customer the other day where he said, hey, I'm paying $20 a box for this product to be made in Canada, and if I choose to make the same product in Mexico, the same box is going to cost me $7, but now if I make it in Greece, it costs me $2. And you look at the price disparity on some of these products, so you realize that, yeah, there's going to be some global shifts in manufacturing. There's going to be some global shifts that happen in supply chains and the way that we operate. But when we look at which economies are developing and what, things like labor disruptions that come in and inflation and cost of living, there's so many things that are changing the way that people look at their buying habits and where they're sourcing from. And again, whether it's paying attention to the environment, there's this big push on buy local, sustainable items. And so when you have all this stuff happening at the same time, people's habits are going to change, and being on top of that is something that you definitely want to be.
For sure. And I think one more I just want to touch on before we move on to, connecting solutions to needs is exploring financial concerns. Because when push comes to shove, when you're dealing with a prospect, a customer, future business with that customer, there are always going to be financial concerns. If you're dealing with a company, they're in the business to increase their revenues and turn a profit, which is very important. So if you're able to not just ask questions about budget and how your service might reduce costs, if there's major concerns, you got to get creative in showing them value. I think it's really important to talk about your ROI, the return on the investment of working with you, and why it's good. We're touching on that a little bit already about how much they enjoy it, and if this individual leaves, just not just the return on the investment for them by the services you're doing, like whether it's some companies having a certain time to get a proof of delivery provided, a piece of the document that confirms this delivery was made in shipping. And if you turn around and you're giving it to them on day one, the day it's delivered, it's going above and beyond, and it's giving the individual the information they need to make their job easier. And again, it goes a long way to be able to service their needs by understanding them and giving them the tools to make their job easier, which is so important. So that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about connecting solutions to needs now, Damon. So where do we go with that?
Thanks. Yeah. Connecting solutions to needs. This is how you're going to show somebody that you're the right fit for them. And after identifying their needs, you really have to connect your solution to their pain points and say, okay, hey, this is why you need to work with us. You don't want to say it in those words, but you definitely want to highlight, your strengths. You want to tailor your proposal to whichever client it is and show them that, hey, you know what, our strengths seem to fit your needs. This is what we kind of specialize in, and we'd be a really good fit to handle this for you. And use success stories, right? There's different ways that you're able to kind of highlight this to customers. I love using success stories because it shows them like, hey, you know what? These guys are experienced. They know what they're talking about. They've done the same thing for other customers in the past. If you don't have success stories of your own, borrow them from somebody else. If you don't have coworkers that you can go to for success stories, look up success stories just on the internet and see how you can replicate those. Right? Even talking about, future, when we talk about like future plans or a future result that we could potentially get somebody, back it up with some data, right? So look at success stories even from people in similar industries and see how you can apply that, and just talk about that. Like, what if I was able to deliver this result for you, and highlight how you can actually do it. Go for it, Gil.
Yeah, I was just going to say that success stories are a really great way to do this as well, because I don't know if you ever heard the expression that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Success stories basically run along the same lines, because sharing a story is more personable than sharing a statistic or data or just saying we can do A, B, and C, because it gives the customer or the prospect the ability to put themselves into that story, to see themselves in that situation and think, what would I do and how would that make me feel if XYZ company came in and saved the day like they're explaining in the story. It gives them that personal feeling that connects them to that service that you're offering, and it connects it and it binds everything together. So I think success stories are top tier.
Sharing is caring.
For sure. And there's such a number of ways to be able to do this. You could do it through white papers, which is just like case studies that you've previously done, and put it into a paper format. You don't always have to be able to talk about it. If your communication is not your strong suit, figure out ways that you can market that same information to the client ahead. We use things like testimonials from previous clients if we worked with them. a certain industry, we'll ask for testimonials and see if we could use that as leverage to gain new business as well. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways that you can highlight different stories, or figure out images that you could post on your LinkedIn. We use that as different strategies, but any which way to kind of show a story that can take somebody along that journey and let them know that, hey, you're the right person that can handle the solutions to their needs. And the last one I like to use is the ROI, which you touched on briefly before, Dean. But show people that there's something that they're going to benefit at the end, whether it's cost savings, whether it's improvement in gaining new business, whether it's efficiencies that they'll gain in their operations, which again will create new business for them in the long run. But there's so many different ways that we can kind of show them, cost savings on how much they're maybe saving on claims or returns. Maybe it's cost savings on the amount of time that they have to spend in the warehouse because our trailers, pick up on time and deliver on time, and their staff isn't waiting around for product. And this happens a lot of times where, we get different carriers that come in at cheaper pricing, but they're never there. They don't show up half the time. And then nobody thinks about the cost that's associated with customers waiting around and not receiving their product, right? So lost opportunity cost is what we call that in business. But, if you're losing customers because you have no product to give somebody, now what good is that cheap rate going to do you? Right? So a lot of customers sometimes don't think about, what it costs them for a breakdown situation, what it costs them if someone's not sending their accounting or invoicing on time. But there's so many of these hidden costs that we can kind of go back and show them that ROI and say, hey, well, what value does this bring to your accounting team? What return on investment does this bring into your operations or sales or safety and compliance, any part of that business? There's so many different ways that you can show ROI that you just have to get creative with it and use data wherever you can. Research and data are always key. I'm more analytical myself, so I like to see something on paper and I like to see the numbers make sense. And so get creative with it.
Yeah, ROI is such a great selling point because again, you want to make your contact, your customer, look like a rock star. And if you're able to sell the points that they need, because again, you want to make their job easier, but also they are, wherever they fit within the organization, they're going to go to their superiors, the people they report to, and talk about, hey, this is the return on our investment. And truthfully, at that time they're having that conversation, they're actually selling your services and you to their supervisors. So it's a huge key and strategy to employ.
Thanks, Dean. Which is going to bring us to the last step of today's episode. So we've talked about figuring out how to tailor your solutions, understanding your customers' needs, different areas and ways that we can ask them the right questions. But how do you validate your solution? So once you propose that perfect solution that you think is the best fit for your customer, it's going to fit all of their service needs and solve all of their problems, sometimes we still don't get it right. And this is where validation comes into play. So this is where you're going to want to check for alignment. You want to ask them and say, hey, is this solution that we're proposing, is it going to fit your needs? Is it going to fix the problems or act as a service solution for something that you guys are experiencing right now? And if it's not, it's okay to go back and hit the drawing board and to continue that conversation, figure out maybe where there was something missing in that communication, and then continue forward from there. But validation is super important because they end up purchasing something that's not the right fit. The chances of that customer becoming a longevity customer, continuing for a long time, is a lot less because they may not be as happy with the product or service than if you take some time to make sure that it's the proper alignment. The next thing that you guys can do is support it with data. You want to use data, testimonials, storytelling, anything that you can that adds validity to your offer. Like a lot of the times if you say, yeah, we can do A, B, C, and D, but you have nothing to back it up, it kind of comes off as hollow. But if you start showing like statistics, hey, this is our on-time delivery rating, here's some testimonials from some of our customers who are extremely satisfied and happy with their services, that adds backing and trust behind your claims. And they're more likely to say, okay, you know what, let's give this opportunity a shot because I have seen enough that I'm going to trust you with my business.
And depending on the length of the sales cycle, a lot of people have a hard time kind of thinking about, okay, what information do I follow up with? When you have a short sales cycle or pretty much is on the spot, you want to do a lot of this back to back to make sure that you get the customer to follow along and you can kind of gauge whether they're ready to close. But a lot of times, like in the sales that we do, it's a lot of it's focused over, let's say, 8 to 15 touches. And a lot of people, after the third touch with somebody, they have a hard time following up. But using these type of strategies, it's kind of key for that. Is provide them with data. Think of different success stories that you can send them. But there's so much information even here when you can validate your own solution, and it's a great way to just send those testers and feelers to your clients and let them know that, hey, we're thinking about you, and here's what else we're doing, where we're relevant to your industry. Figure out ways to connect.
And then finally, you just want to have set clear next steps and next processes for your communication. Whether you are at the end of your sales cycle and you're about to close the customer, maybe the next step is a follow-up to see how the first week goes. Maybe it's just about setting up a meeting for your proposal and to sit down and actually go over the solution that you're going to offer to them. But you need to make sure that every interaction at every stage of your sales cycle, at the end of that conversation, you should propose your next step so that you know what's going to happen next and they know what's going to happen next. And this will keep some clarity in your communication and make it a lot easier to follow your own sales cycle.
All great stuff. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. And you can see now that understanding your customers' needs is not just a process, it's truly a mindset. And by listening actively, asking the right questions, and tailoring your solutions, you're going to build strong, more trust-based relationships that are going to lead to long-term partnerships and success in your business. So apply these principles in your sales conversations, and you're going to find that qualifying leads and closing deals is going to be more efficient and rewarding. So stay tuned for our next episode. We'll be still on the art of prospecting, and we're going to be diving into customizing your approach. So until then, take care and good luck.
Bye, guys.